this request requires my strong and lengthy attention. And so you're not going to get a ruling from me this afternoon.
A 6-week ban on most abortions in the state of Iowa is now law. Tonight on Iowa's News Now, what happened during that court hearing for the lawsuit just before the signing, and reactions from abortion advocates. And that is where we start tonight, with Governor Kim Reynolds signing those new abortion restrictions into law this afternoon at the Family Leaders Summit in Des Moines. Those restrictions are now in effect for at least this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about how a judge could change that after that hearing earlier this afternoon. We start our our team coverage tonight with Iowa's News Now State House reporter Skylar Tlal, who is looking at abortion reality now in Iowa as we get into our coverage.
During the Family Leaders Summit, Governor Kim Reynolds signs the nearly 6-week abortion ban into law. Effective immediately, Iowans will not have access to an abortion once cardiac activity has been detected by an ultrasound. Following the appointment, women will have to sign a document stating a heartbeat was detected and an abortion cannot be performed. There are exceptions to the law, including when a woman's life is at risk, there are fetal abnormalities, and in cases of rape and incest, as long as it was reported and documented.
I could not imagine a more appropriate place to sign this bill than here at the Family Leaders Summit, alongside such strong advocates who have fought and prayed for the protection of life for decades.
There are no penalties for women who decide to have an abortion after cardiac activity is detected, but they will have to go to an out-of-state doctor.
The passage of this legislation by even a wider margin this time sends an unmistakable message. Iowa's 2018 heartbeat law was not hypothetical. It was not an empty gesture, and it was not a mistake. It was an ironclad commitment to the smallest and most vulnerable among us. All life is precious and worthy of the protection of our laws.
Right now, it's not clear what consequences will face Iowa doctors if they decide to break the law. The Iowa Board of Medicine will be in charge of making and addressing those penalties.
We have a responsibility not only to protect the unborn, but to change the destructive culture of abortion that still exists in a post-Roe world. Even with the fetal heartbeat bill, the fight continues for a robust culture of life that welcomes children, supports mothers, and involves fathers.
In Des Moines, Skylar Tlal reporting.
About an hour before Reynolds signed that bill, the legal battle over it got underway. Iowa's News Now anchor Nick Weig live in studio. Continuing our team coverage tonight, looking at the chances for success of that opposition.
Yeah, Mitch, opponents got this bill struck down 5 years ago when the Iowa Supreme Court ruled it was unconstitutional under both state and federal protection. But after the fall of Roe v. Wade, the state's highest court overturned their own ruling, and now Republicans have passed that bill again.
All right, we ready to go on the record?
Just an hour before Governor Reynolds signed major restrictions on abortion in Iowa, her opponents were back in court trying to stop it from becoming law, at least for now, by sharing impacts they've seen reported in other states with abortion bans.
We've seen people who were denied care, people in dire medical circumstances whose doctors either turn them away or call their lawyers to see if they can provide care.
Both sides walked through their interpretation of 5 Iowa Supreme Court cases involving abortion matters in just the last 8 years. Among those 5, more recent rulings that have overturned previous protections.
The court outright says textually there is no support for Planned Parenthood II's reading of the due process clause as providing a fundamental protection for abortion.
Those bringing the suit say it's not practical to enforce the law now with no guidelines in place and terminology used sowing confusion over what the law actually stands for.
The bill uses the term fetal heartbeat, but that's medically inaccurate and misleading. Because medically, it's an embryo before it reaches 10 weeks of gestation, and it's not a fetus. And when cardiac activity is first detectable, it's an electrical pulse. There's no organ that can be called a heart yet.
Merits of the case and intention of the law appear to do little to sway the judge who decided against an immediate decision on an injunction because of the gravity of this case.
I cannot think of anything that would be more insulting to either side than for a judge who, before Wednesday at 11 o'clock, had no idea that he was going to be involved in any of this, would listen to arguments and then rule from the bench.
So the new abortion restrictions now in place here in Iowa. An attorney for Planned Parenthood says that Planned Parenthood and the Emma Goldman Clinic tell him that this will affect roughly 95% of all of their patients who are seeking some form of abortion care. Nick Weig, Iowa's News Now.
Nick, thank you. And as you'd imagine, a lot of reaction to today's bill signing. The White House, in fact, is weighing in, calling the law extreme, saying that, quote, Iowa's new law will penalize healthcare providers and cause delays and denials of health and life-saving care. The Democratic National Committee saying, quote, MAGA Republicans won't stop their crusade against abortion until they rip away the freedom of every woman in every state to make their own health care decisions. Some support for the new ban as well. The anti-abortion group National Right to Life said, quote, we are proud to stand beside Governor Reynolds, the pro-life legislators, and the members of our Iowa coalition of pro-life leaders.